Welcome back to another episode of the Loco Fit Show, where we redefine what healthy means to you. I'm your host, Laurin, and today's episode is part one of a two-part series on tracking macros. So I wanted to cover both when you should start tracking macros, as well as when you should stop tracking macros, because they're both equally as important, but they're both very different. So I thought it'd be a perfect topic to discuss in our mini Monday episodes, which Sam has deemed mini-sode. And now that she's said that, I can't get that out of my head. So let me know if you guys have a better name, if we like the name, or if you guys cringe every time you hear the word mini-sode. To be honest, nobody probably cares as much as we do, but in any case. So first of all, when we're talking just about tracking food intake in general, right? Most people now at this point have probably heard about tracking macros. 5, definitely 10 years ago, it was not the norm, right? This was not something that everybody knew about. But now with so many popular tracking apps like MyFitnessPal, of course, blew up, a lot of people understand or have somewhat of an idea about tracking macros. They at least understand or have more of an idea about tracking calories. But even above that, as far as being the least specific, we could say there would be portion control and or tracking habits, right? Those are really foundational skills. And for a lot of clients, we actually start there. And people come to us who are like, I don't really want to track quite yet. I'm not really in the position, but I know I need to make a change. And we will start with tracking habits. And honestly, I would love for everybody to do that because that really sets up a nice foundation. Even if you do that for a month, you're probably going to be in a much better situation. Now, you can simultaneously track and follow habits as well as track macros. And we actually do that, I would say, with most of our clients. But if you are looking to start portion control habits, great place, but going to be the least specific for your goals. Next would be tracking calories. And again, this would be something that, you're using, some type of a tracking app and you're plugging things in, etc. And you're just looking to hit the total calories. The macronutrient distribution doesn't really matter. And then next would be either tracking macros, so carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and hitting specific targets every single day, and or eating off of a meal plan, because that is also going to be based off of specific macronutrient targets. So least specific, portion control habits. Next would be calories, and then most specific towards your goals and towards you would be tracking macros and or eating off of a meal plan, or doing both of those things. Basically having meals that you kind of stick with, or hey, this meal plan, I follow 3 of these meals, and then my 4th meal, I switch it up every day, whatever that might look like for you. And when we're talking about when is the best time to start tracking macros, it really is when you want to be more precise with your diet or with a specific goal. So when I talked about portions and habits being the least specific, I just mean that, that could mean a lot of different things, right? You could say, hey, one of my habits is to eat protein 3 times a day, but that doesn't take into consideration all of the other macronutrients. That also doesn't take into consideration that maybe those 3 meals, some days they're 40 grams of protein each meal. Sometimes they're still 3, but they're maybe 20 grams, right? So it's not going to be as specific. So when you have a goal like, hey, I want to build lean muscle, or I want to recover better from training, or I want to lose body fat, or I want to recomp, whatever it is, if that's more specific, dialing your nutrition in by tracking macros and or using some type of a meal template it's going to give you the best results and the quickest results. And when I say quick, I don't mean like a quick fix. I just mean that it's going to get you there faster, because you can certainly reach a lot of these goals through habits and through portion control and even through just tracking calories. But if we're trying to be optimal and we're trying to get a more either extreme goal or a more specific goal or get there faster, nothing is going to be being precise like tracking macros. Now, the other thing about this too is you will learn so much about food when you track macros, even when you're also eating off of a meal plan. And we saw this in my research when me and Danielle ran this back in, oh my gosh, when was that now? 2015. And, we put people on either meal plan or macros, and people learned so much off of the meal plan because they were like, yeah, I was understanding portion sizes better. I was choosing certain foods. I was not adding certain things that I normally would have. So you can glean that information from either eating off of a meal plan and or tracking macros. Now, of course, the perk of tracking macros is that you can be more flexible, you have more variety, but you could also say, hey, you could take these macros and create your own meal plan, or you could create adjustments to a meal plan, right? There's so many different ways to slice this, right? And I think that the important part here is that it's all stemming back to, we have 3 specific targets with carbs, fats, and proteins that we're hitting on a daily basis. And those are specifically tailored towards reaching the goal that we're trying to hit. And when you do this, you're really able to dial in what is in food. And even if you were to track macros for 6 months, right, that information is invaluable. And I am a big believer that not everybody needs to track for the rest of their life. Hence the next podcast, hence what I do with my life and what we try to get our clients to do. But it does not mean that you don't learn from that period of time. And the longer you do it, the more that you learn, typically speaking. And you can also always develop this skill and then go back to it, right? I tracked for years. I also now at this point haven't tracked for years. I was just talking to somebody and I realized that I haven't actively dieted outside of a 2-week research stint that I did for Dr. Campbell. I have not actively dieted and been in a deficit since September of 2018, and it's July or almost July of 2022. So it's almost 4 years of not being in a deficit or tracking macros at all. But that doesn't mean that I'm not aware of what's in my food, right? I'm fully aware of what's in my food intake. I've been tracking my food for years upon years upon years. And it's a skill that I've developed that if I want to go back to it, I can easily add it. If I said, hey, I want to get more specific, I want to add some muscle back, I want to lose more body fat, I could easily start tracking again, tailor that to my needs. And that's a skill that I have. But the skills that I've developed, I'm now able to look at food and say, okay, that's about 4 ounces of cooked chicken. That's about 100 grams of carbs. That's about, I can literally eat things without even knowing the calories and be like, all right, that's about this. I am so in tune with that because I've done it for so many years. So it's a really great skill to have. Now, I'm not saying that if you track macros for 6 months, you're going to be able to develop those skills. No, I've been doing this literally for almost my whole life. I have been looking at food labels. I have been tracking things, in a disordered way. So I'm not saying that it was a good thing, but it certainly was helpful to, I got something out of it or was able to use maybe that dark experience for something positive. So when you go through this process of tracking for any period of time, you're going to learn a lot about what's in food, what's a portion size. There's so many times where we're like, oh yeah, that's a portion of pasta. And then you cook it and you're like, no, it's not. Or the all-time best, it's just a spoonful of peanut butter. No, it's not. That's 3 servings. So, when you do this over and over again, you can say, okay, that's 16 grams. I either know it is or I'm lying to myself. And then you have to decide, if you want to lie to yourself or if you want to make the choice to say, no, I wanted a serving, I'm going to stick with the serving. And once you've done that for long enough, you're able to gather a lot of information. And I'm just saying 6 months to start tracking as a great goal. Doesn't have to be that long, doesn't have to be that short. But if you're interested in being more specific with your goals, you're going to have to if you're interested in more specific goals, you're going to have to get more specific if you have more specific goals, you're going to have to get more specific with your nutrition. There is no way around this. And tracking macros is absolutely the most precise way to go about it. So that would be the biggest reason why I would say to start to work towards that specific goal and to just learn more about what's in food. And you can use this for the years to come afterwards. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it. That is the best way to support us. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching, you can visit teamlocofit.com. You can also subscribe to our newsletter on the website and be the first to hear about the new app that we're releasing in a few months. And I look forward to talking to you guys on Wednesday.